Welcome to the final edition of Value for Money TV show, a 6-week special feature put together by Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative PLSI through its Value for Money advocacy project supported by the European Union Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Rule Act program. Over the last 6 weeks, we've been discussing key accountability issues relating to public finance management in Nigeria. We've looked at delivery of social services to underserved and marginalized communities, extractive revenues collected by government entities from international oil companies, as well as issues of inefficiencies in tax collection remittance and its effect on budget implementation in Nigeria. On the show today, we will discuss how inefficiencies in tax collection remittance is affecting mobilization of funds for effective implementation of annual budget, as well as highlight development cost of revenue losses to citizens. My name is Olusegun Elemo, your anchor on the show. Let's take a breather and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Tax revenue inefficiency is an important factor as it affects both the volume and the nature of government finance. Federal and state governments may lose both individual and corporate income tax revenue due to inefficiency in tax collection. To support development in education, health, water, and infrastructure, and to ensure Nigeria achieves overall 2030 sustainable development goals, the government ought to, among different alternatives, be equipped and prepared for revenue generation, put in place an effective and efficient tax system enforceable, especially among government ministries, departments, and agencies. A government desiring to meet its basic obligations to the society must prioritize tax efforts and must be seen to be doing this in its own house first before demanding same from citizens and private corporations. Over 4.1 billion naira was lost by the federal government as detailed in the 2016 audit report of the Federation. The Nigerian Senate on Thursday, 28 March 2019, decried the poor implementation of the 2018 budget and blamed the executive arm of government for not releasing funds that could enable federal agencies to execute developmental projects. Senator Sulaiman Adokwe, former chairman Senate Committee on Information, in a story published by Punch newspaper on Friday, 29 March 2019, said, and I quote, "Before the budget defense exercise, we had done a bit of oversight functions, and we noticed that releases for capital projects were quite low. Most of the agencies that we visited received between 10 to 15% releases. Based on our interaction with various agencies of government, we have discovered that capital releases are still very low. So far, the highest I have seen, the highest release is 67%. Releases to some agencies are hovering between 40 and 45%. So the 2018 budget implementation, in our opinion, is not very encouraging, and capital releases are what really ginger the economy. This is because it is the expenditure arising from capital provisions that put money in the system. And this has been very low. Only salaries have been paid up to 100%. Now, joining me to discuss this issue and more, I have a lady in the studio, Lucy James Abagi, Programs Lead, Connected Development Code. Welcome today on the show.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
I also have Chukwemeka Abana, Head, Legal Investigation and Enforcement, Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Greetings to all our viewers.
Now, Lucy, I want to take you first on this. The National Assembly sometimes, of course, oftentimes always say the implementation of budget. But we know that before we talk about implementation of budget, we must talk about revenue. And now where you have government losing so much to leakages and corruption, there will be less to implement the budget. How exactly do we tackle this issue of leakages vis-a-vis this 4.1 billion naira that government lost as detailed in 2016 audit report? How do we tackle leakages?
All right, so for me, it's been very practical and being realistic is that we need to create adequate systems to monitor financial flows from MDAs, from government officials, from business owners, and we should be optimistic and very, very realistic in our approach, owing to the fact that we need to have a monitoring system to be able to account for every money that goes into a particular agency, every money that goes into every project, every generated revenue from every agency is supposed to be monitored. So we could actually audit and account for what each agency have been able to do in every fiscal year.
Okay.
So for me, number one is to have a good structure, a good technological structure that can monitor whatever every agency can generate every year. Then secondly, for me, it's also for us to ensure that most government officials can declare their assets. It's important that government officials declare their assets. So we know, in fact, not just government officials, every public servant is expected to declare their assets. So we know that this is the properties you have, this is the housing facilities you have, and so we can also be able to manage what kind of tax will be expected from you. And then the system that already been created can now monitor and know that, look, this person is expected to pay this percentage of tax as the person paid for this fiscal year, and so these leakages can be blocked from this angle.
Now when you look at a situation where government ministries, departments and agencies award projects, award contracts to private individuals, private companies, and they refuse to sometimes deduct what should go back to government in form of withholding tax or value-added tax. And then we then turn around to say we have very limited funds to implement the budget. How do we explain
the fact is, the problem is from the contracting process. When we get it right from the contracting process, this should be a law that if you're going to work with government on a particular project, then there should be an agreement like what we have on the NGO space. If you're dealing with us as a vendor, we agree with you that at the initial point, this amount will be withheld from whatever funds that we've agreed for you to do this project.
Yes.
And so from the contracting process, there should be that kind of agreement. So when you give someone money and ask the person to go and pay, what is the law that will guide that person to ensure that the person pays, and what is the law that will punish the person if the person doesn't remit its own part of agreement to the government? So if you're having challenges from there, at the point of contracting, this should be agreed that, look, you're going to be handling the construction of this based on this amount of
shouldn't it be the responsibility of the awarding agency to deduct from source?
Yes, that's what I mean. It's the responsibility of the awarding agency to deduct from source. So we are deducting 5% withholding tax, or we are deducting 10% withholding tax based on this contract from you. And so whether you agree or not is our standing order.
And now when they fail to do that, and they without
no, there's no failure. There will be no room for failure. So if there's an agreement from the beginning, you sign to it.
Okay.
So as they are moving the money from the agency's account to your account, that money has already been deducted.
Okay.
So you don't have the room to negotiate.
Okay, but in this case, some monies were not deducted and just paid outrightly to contractors. Some monies were deducted and not remitted to the Federal Land Revenue Service.
And then there should be, like I said before, there should be a system that monitors that. If we don't have this right from the beginning, like I said, the contracting process, we will always have these issues. And so if this issue comes up, there should be laws that will ensure that this person is punished for even delaying.
Now, talking about punishment now, as you just mentioned, yeah. I go to Chukwemeka. Now, the problem we have, is it a question of rules, laws, or the people?
Okay. Before we go to the question, let me just make a comment on the issues that she has just raised concerning the payment systems for contractors in the public service and so on. Well, we must understand that this challenge of inadequate revenue has been there for a long time in this country. And governments over the years have come up with a lot of measures to combat and to restrict this problem. And I can tell you today we have made substantial progress in that regard. I don't know whether you've heard about the software they call GiveMix.
Okay, yes.
Now this is software that is used mainly in public service when it comes to payment for services or for contract done and so on. Now before you are paid, once you are on that platform, the challenge now is getting every agency of government to be on the GiveMix platform. That is one. Once you're on that platform, and before you even get a government contract now, you must fulfill some conditions, including getting your TIN number, your tax
identification number
for your company. As well as other requirements, you must be registered in the database of contractors, government recognized contractors and all that. So before your money even gets to your account, those taxes must have deducted and remitted to the appropriate tax agencies. That is the first line charge on that contract amount. That's how it is today. So anybody who tells you that it's easy for any contractor to just go into a government agency, get a contract, either perform or not perform, and get all his money and walk away, it's not as easy as that. No couple will be released on that platform until all the adequate taxes are paid. I know that as a matter of fact, the only risk that we're finding in that system now, as it is now, that sometimes in order to cut some corners, what some people do in certain cases is that because probably the contractor doesn't have the relevant documentation or registration and they want to give a job to that contractor, they now nominate a staff of that agency to pay the money to that staff account, because already as staff of company agency you have your tax number, you pay tax, so the system will recognize you as a taxpayer, and then they pay the money through the staff to the contractor, and then the government may lose some of these taxes that they withholding tax and so on. But ordinarily, if you are to follow the strict procedure as it is today,
yes,
it will be difficult for any contractor to get any money without paying all the relevant taxes as provided in the external tax laws that we have today. That's one. Now, talking about the issue of general revenue, the challenge of revenue to fund budgets, taxes is just one aspect of it, you know. In our country today, we have like 4 major streams of general revenue for national budget implementation. We know we depend largely on proceeds from the sale of crude oil.
Yes.
That is handled by DPR and NNPC. There is also the Nigerian Post Authority. Yes. You know, collects taxes from those importers and exporters and all that.
Yeah. Now it's encouraging to know that platforms like Jifnis
yes,
is able to curb leakages with regards to tax and yeah, it's we're looking forward to the evidence. I mean, to the data to support that narrative.
It's available. I'm sure if you go to the office of the Accountant General Federation, you will see that once that is been fully, I told you that the only risk factor I find, or leakage I find, is the idea of trying to circumvent by paying the money to a staff of the place.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
If the internal auditors who go around all the federal institutions periodically, I think every month or 2 months, they go around, they check to see all the payments on the platform, how did they go. They can query some of these other payments outside the platform. And it will be easy to know. It will just show you. So that technology is helping a lot.
Okay.
It's just a matter of now, probably the people involved now imposing the laws or the regulations to now punish offenders. But not that they don't have the means to find out whether there have been some, wrongdoings.
Okay.
They can find that out now.
Okay. Lucy, I mean, again, go back to these leakages in question. The 4.1 billion are not remitted to the federal government. I mean, this is an act of corruption, and we know corruption has a cost of which, I mean, the citizens have to bear. Yeah. Your work, your organization's work, this, around, understanding this concept, the cost of corruption, and how you can bridge some of these gaps that are open for citizens in communities. With the work you have done, what can you say are actually the cost of corruption for citizens? I mean, in real terms.
All right. I want to state that the way the system of Nigeria is being built doesn't allow any agency to function individually, because look to the left, look to the right, they're interlinked. The Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Fiscal Responsibility, FIRS, they have a linkage, because like we stated before, revenues are being generated, and so each of these ministries, each of these agencies are expected to generate revenue to fund their budget for that particular year. Now, the human cost of corruption is more than we can actually see and actually analyze. Because for my organization, when you go down to the grassroots, it is the poor or the poorest that suffers it. It's the marginalized, it's the deprived, the people that cannot speak for themselves, that actually have the effects of corruption being, very, very visualized on their own lives and their own outcomes. Yeah. Now, in the areas of education, we have about 10.5 million out-of-school children. And who are the 10.5 million children? Are the poorest of the poor, the people that are in the grassroots. Yeah. And because of this, it also has an effect on the socioeconomic indices of Nigeria, because education has a lot to play. Yeah. If you're prioritizing education, then you're looking at the outcome the effect, the positive outcome it will have on your economy.
Yeah.
When you have a populace or citizens that are being educated, it means you have enough manpower, you will reduce the indices of unemployment, you remove reduce the indices of insecurity, crimes, violence, rape, and what have you. So each and every one of these factors are being interlinked. Go to the health sector, people are dying. How many mortality and maternity rates do we have in Nigeria? It's on the increase of it. Nigeria is getting, the highest record on every sector. Health, education, you go to unemployment, we are topping the gear. And who are the ones suffering? It's Nigeria. It's the youngest people, the young people. It's the poor of the poor. It's the marginalized people that actually government cannot even see because they are not in the grassroots. So the effect of poor revenue generation, the effect of leakages, the effect of, like you talked about in your previous episodes, the VAT increase. Look at it from all indices. It's the poor of the poorest that suffers it, likes it or not. Like one of the episodes that I watched, you talked about the 7.5 not being tied to the citizens. They're not the ones, they're not the ones paying. But look at it from this. It's the man that owns the farm, that produces the crop, for instance, and he will pay a transport company to move that crop from his farm to the market. That transport company is paying VAT. Then, so when you move it to the market, who suffers the effect of it? An additional cost will come on the citizens, who are the final consumers of it, like it or not. So if this indices was not provided, then you will say that the citizens are not going to pay VAT. They might not come to restaurants or go to Mr.
But they still pay one way or the other.
They still pay one way or the other. Then, okay, if you now turn around again the indices, lack of health facilities, lack of adequate manpower to man the available facilities, if there are, because in the course of our work we cannot see any, to be honest. You don't even have primary health care centers positioned for people in rural communities. You have a population of about 10,000 people being fed with one health center, and there are no provisions for bed wards, there are no provisions for doctors, there are no provisions for nurses, there are no facilities of any kind. You understand? So who are the ones suffering from it? Now, the poor cannot afford to go to the private hospitals. Even when you go to the private hospitals, the indices that, look, the private hospital is paying VAT still falls back to the poor because they will be charged for the services that are being given. And how many poor people can actually access those kind of health facilities? Because the poor of the poorest don't have the socioeconomic means to be able to afford high cost of health services. So the human cost of corruption is on every side, interlinked, interconnected, but the effect of it is more on the rural people. The effect of it is more on the marginalized. The effect of it is more on the woman, the baby, the young people that actually need these services. And so I bring it back to the budget. If we have enough revenue to be able to fund our budget, I know that budget is not actually what government plans. Yes, it shows government priority in each sector. But that does not mean that that's the reality. Because at the end of the day, it's what comes into government funds that will be used to implement the budget. Now, okay, even the available releases, the ones that have been released, have they been judiciously utilized? So, if you want to go and monitor the construction of the school that money have been released for, you will see that substandard products have been used.
And that's the question.
Yes, you will see that a contractor have siphoned money, and now you link it up to the channel of distribution of this one, and that's why I stated the contracting process is being gotten wrong. Look at the country like Uganda. You can just type on the site, and you will see contracting details of every contractor that any ministry will use for a job. You will look at the timeline, you look at the execution, you can actually contact and know who is handling this project. But we don't have that kind of system in Nigeria. Okay, the give he was talking about, my colleague was talking about now. How many agencies have signed up to it? What is the enforcement to ensure that agencies sign up to it? You can't tell me that I've been employed by Connected Development and I've been given strict adherence terms of references that I'm supposed to ensure that I do this and I do this and I don't do it. And my boss will still pay me salary.
Now, I think Chukemego will help us with that. But, I mean, in closing your thoughts, I also wanted you to mention, and of course react to some of the issues Lucy had highlighted. For the National Assembly to come year in, year out, complain about revenue shortfalls, leakages here and there, shouldn't they be concerned reviewing audit reports. I think you can close your thought with that in 1 minute.
I just wanted to give us some background to these issues of revenue inadequacy and so on. How has our laws or the set of our laws tried to prevent this situation? What is the process of getting a budget done? All these matters are covered under the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. Now the act says that before you even go into budgeting, you must do a pre-budget study. Know what your revenue streams are like for the past maybe 3 to 5 years. Know what the projection for the next year will look like under what we call the medium-term expenditure framework, the MTEF. Now this MTEF contains all the assumptions, all the indices that are gotten from an informed point of view. First of all, they come from the Federal Executive Council, they take it to the National Assembly, debated upon and passed by the National Assembly, gazetted, and then the budget must be based on the indices already established under the medium-term expenditure framework. Now, talking about revenue, all the revenue is not every agency of government that's supposed to
generate revenue.
Yeah.
But all the revenue generated agencies are given targets for the beginning of the year. Targets for the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and so on, monthly targets. And these targets are most times, especially in the recent past, are not realized. That's where the issue of shortfalls begins. Why are they not realized? There is a problem somewhere. If, for instance, we all agree at this current, price of crude oil, we say, okay, let's leave us at $60 per barrel, for instance, and then we are hoping to have 2 million barrels per day production. And then you hear every now and then there has been one disruption of production here and there. We hardly get up to 1.6 million barrels done per day. Already there is shortfall. When you take out the cost of production from that
what is the role of the National Assembly in all of this?
That's what I'm trying to say. Now, these are some of the issues that dovetail into the narrative of low revenue or shortage of revenue in the system. And the National Assembly can only investigate to see what can be done in terms of whether there is legislative intervention that can come in to say, let's stop this or let's do this way or that way. That is on one side. But the truth of the matter is that by the size of Nigeria in terms of our population, the infrastructural gap that we have in the system, it is difficult to have a budget without a deficit. And that's why we've had deficit budgets all this while, trying to borrow to make up for the shortfall. Because we know that these revenues we're getting may not be enough. You understand? And then we need to also pay back these loans one day. And that's what's the dilemma. That's to the issue of the VAT. I support VAT. In fact, I think it should be 10%, not 7.5%. That's the truth. You cannot make omelette without breaking eggs. You can't make a camel without using hot water, my brother. Something has to give. If we continue to do these things we are doing the same way and we expect a change, how can the change come? Where will the revenues come from? Today, oil is going down. People are saying, oh, in the next 10 years or 15 years, there will be no cars using fossil fuel. Every car will go electrical, electronic.
Yeah.
Then what happens? Is it that time we now know that we should be speaking of that? We should start now, my brother.
Yeah.
Now, and again, the government has taken steps to cushion the effect on the poor, as far as I'm concerned. Most of the items that the poor deal with are not VAT. And in case the VAT revenue themselves, 70% go to the local, the state and local government. They should use it now to build the permanent center we're talking about. They should use it now to provide the drugs in hospitals. Yeah. But not to say that we should remain the country is the least VAT charging country in the entire West Africa. And yet we have the kind of problems we have.
Yes, with that we come to the final edition of the Value for Money TV show. Value for Money is a project of Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative, and it is supported by the European Union Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption ROLAC program. Thank you for being part of the show all the while. Always remember that public accountability is possible only with a vigilant and involved citizenry. Of course, I remain yours sincerely, Olusegun Elemo. Thank you for being part of the show. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.